Zach, good morning. Thank you for joining the NARPM webinar today. We are really excited to listen to your utility profit tool for property managers. So excited to be here, and all is yours.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us. Yeah, today we're going to talk about how utility profit works, but even broader than that, we're really talking about the way to think about your entire move-in process and different ways you can use software to automate that flow and also just ensure that tenants have a good experience when they are moving into the new home that you just rented to them. And excited to talk about this. We have hundreds of customers that are using this tool, and we are going to teach you a lot of new things. Maybe you have not even thought about utilities before, so it's going to be a good time.
Thank you so much. Really excited to listen about it. All right. So tell us about yourself a little bit, like some of your background, personal background, and what inspired you to open this company.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been an entrepreneur now ever since I had graduated college. Back in the day, I think even in college, I'd be able to get some extra beer money or something from building websites and, trying to figure out how to do my own thing. And then after college, I started a food delivery company called Favor. It ended up being the first company to do food delivery and allow you to get anything you wanted from any store or restaurant in town. And we scaled that up to have 50,000 delivery drivers, and we were doing well over $100 million in food sales. Eventually sold that company to HEB, and that was about 7 years now ago. And ever since then, I've been working on the single family residential market, learning a lot about property management and different ways to be able to improve the experience for both the business owners and tenants through software. So, Utility Profit is a newer company in the space, but it's something that we started because we knew that the move-in process is really important, and we had felt the pain directly as a renter moving into a new house, not knowing what services to set up and how any of that worked. And just from working with a lot of property managers on other software that we're building, we knew that we could really make an impact in this area.
A solution for the moving process.
That's right.
Nice. And how has the company like been going on since you guys started?
It's been going really well. We are all about trying to improve things through good design and through really good product solutions and engineering. And we've got a super talented crew, and that has allowed us to really take a lot of leaps quickly. In 2024, you would think that there'd be a database that has every single address and then the associated water and electric and gas and internet mapped. There should be a database like that, almost like Google Maps, but for these essential services. And it doesn't exist. Pretty crazy. So we're basically building out that core infrastructure right now and mapping the entire US and kind of taking into account how some of these providers will just service a specific zip code or a specific coverage map or a specific city, different policies about how some things are municipal run or private companies, working with all the companies in the whole United States, both telecom and utility. And we've been able to make a lot of really great partnerships within that.
Nice. So you guys are doing all the back end work so to keep it simple for the tenant and
Yeah,
property managers.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we'll kind of like show how some of that stuff works and also talk about the industry a bit in a second.
Perfect. Thank you for the intro, and let's go on this.
Cool. So first, I was gonna just explain like some high level stuff about what happens for the life cycle of the listing, and then what some property managers are doing from a policy perspective around how they kind of think about, key exchange and like whose name do utilities go in. So, this is a new home for rent. Uh, the tenant is moving out as the lease ends. the property is getting turned over. That's the first box that we see here for the move out. Uh, what has to initially happen is like as the home is vacant, about half the property managers put the utilities into the property management company's name, and then the other half will have it in the property owner's name. Sometimes property managers will actually manage that process themselves, and they'll put it into the owner's name, um, as a courtesy to them, almost like a service that they're offering. And then once the home finds a new tenant, it's pretty important that the short-term utilities that were set up for the vacancy get turned off, and then it gets transferred into the incoming tenant's name. And utility profit right now is mostly focused at that, the incoming tenants' utility service activations. And then long term, we're probably going to be looking at this entire utility process, doing things for that move out and vacancy period as well.
To connect everything.
Exactly.
Nice. Does anyone know how to turn on the electricity? Not everybody.
Yeah, not everybody. It's actually kind of hard. I mean, but you understand why it would be hard. There's people that are moving from state to state. They might not know the local services. A lot of tenants have been, leasing for the first time. Maybe
Hmm.
they're recently college grads or something. They've never even done it before because they had roommates. And it
That
to their
happened to me.
to their credit too, it also like depends on if they're renting a house or renting an apartment. Everything's a little bit different.
Correct. So what's the normal process at the moment? Like, what's the regular moving? They need to go on Google, or what do a
Yeah,
tenant?
Yeah, that's right. I think that that is what happens is uh today property managers will email tenants and say, "You've been approved for the home. Congrats on your new house. Um and you should go set up services, and you got to do that before I give you the keys to it." Uh and sometimes that stuff's mapped, but like a lot of times it's like, "Hey, go Google it. Go try to figure it out." So the tenant goes on Google, they start calling around, trying to figure out which utility companies, and then they're typically doing screenshots of the service activations, and then going back and forth over email with the property manager to show that they have set these things up. And then the property manager has to kind of like take that, put it someplace in a spreadsheet or maybe inside of their property management software. But oftentimes there's not a clear process for that, and so
Hmm.
it's not housed in one location. And additionally, like what we find is that tenants need a lot of reminders. They've got a ton of stuff going on, a lot of logistics of moving out of their old place and moving into a new one. And so they need a lot of nudges to even ensure that process happened. This is just one of the 50 things that they are doing within their rental um, process, if you're kind of thinking about stuff that the renters have to go through to secure a home.
Okay, nice. So yeah, it's quite a messy process, like what it's currently happening.
That's right. I think I talked about these two slides. I'll keep going. Um, Uh, yeah, this slide, I guess it's just a detail of some of the utilities, but some of the people that might be listening to this webinar manage primarily single family homes, whereas others might be doing big box multifamily, and then others still might be doing smaller apartments called garden style apartments, which are like vintage properties that tend to be like less than 100 doors. So the utility and internet varies by these. Kind of the key thing to know about the market landscape for this is sometimes apartments, like the big box ones, will get wired up for one telecom provider. The entire building might be wired up for one company, whereas homes, they might have access to multiple different providers that all have wiring for the house, and can service that home. And then the other detail is that apartments will typically have certain utilities that will be directly in the tenant's name, whereas other utilities, it might have to get submetered. And one example of this might be water. So maybe the water is set up for the entire building.
Okay.
Then what ends up having to happen is property manager will try to figure out what the allocated pay rate is for the for each tenant, and they will often use some sort of like allocated square footage method,
Oh,
where if you have a bigger unit, then you get a higher portion of that aggregated bill that might come in for the building. So a bit of a deep dive detail about it, but I think it's kind of interesting just to kind of think through the different ways that that things can get set up.
yeah, like I don't think people think about these things, you know. It's who would know that like apartments are this way and then rates are the other way, etc. So interesting to know. So utility profit market is mainly single family rentals.
Yeah, that's right. It's mostly for homes, and then some of the garden style apartments we also can handle. But
Oh,
if it's going to require different sub metering, it enters a category of bill pay management and also sub metering, which we're not actively involved with.
okay, perfect.
So this was a Facebook poll that I had on one of the NARPM Facebook groups, and I was just asking some of the policies that people have in place. Um, do you require that tenants give proof that they had set up utilities before getting the keys? And some of these answers are I think, kind of interesting. So 80% say that they do require confirmation, and that's what I'd expect. It's probably a little higher of a percentage than I would have expected before the survey. Only 5% saying that they don't require it. So pretty much everyone does require it. And then some of these, you can see that there's some details about it, um, like this one right here by Aaron Murphy is pretty funny. I intend to require it, but sometimes I haven't, and I regret it every time. And
Because
and
then
so
the problems come in, I believe.
that's right. Yeah, I mean, there's several problems that come in. I think one of those problems is that, say the tenant was going to set it up but they didn't. Well, maybe it's winter time, and if they don't set it up, like the pipes could burst if it's too cold. Or maybe they are moving in the summer and the utilities aren't on, and they didn't really think it through. They go to move into the house, and the house is scorching hot because they moved into a home in Austin, Texas, and it's 105 degrees. And then next thing you know, what's happening? Well, the tenant's calling up the property manager, and it's this like mad dash scramble that's happening on move-in day.
Okay, so that's why most of them they do require it before the key exchange. Like, so there's no an after moving in problem with the tenant and keep their satisfaction kind of good with the property management company.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, you're really starting your relationship on move-in day. Um, it's one of the first significant milestones that you've had with the tenant, and information exchanges you've had with them after the approval. So if you have a nice smooth process, you're probably going to have happier tenants thereafter. Whereas if it stinks, then you're kind of setting up this relationship that you're going to have with them for hopefully years to come, with an awkward stain that then all of a sudden maybe turn into this more contentious type of relationship. And so
And yeah, like what challenge is there if they are not answering or like the tenant is not setting up the utilities? W-
yeah, lots of some. I think I hit on a couple related to just like issues that might happen at the home, but even more broadly, like there can be different mishaps that happen even with some of the bill back. So, for example, if the owner of the home had utilities under their name and then the incoming tenant doesn't put them up under their name, well, then maybe it's certain monies that have to get transferred back into the owner of the property's name, as just one example of some of the problems that might happen. Um, and then, like, why do it for the key exchange? Well, it's just a moment in time where the property manager has authority, they have leverage, the tenant is actively engaged on trying to get access to the home. And so it's just a good time to be able to instruct the tenant on what to do to be able to have a smooth process for it.
Nice.
And I touched on this before when you were asking like how they do it now, but 87% of property managers do this over email. And email, it's just like you don't want to be a slave to your inbox, always checking things. Like, you have a ton of other stuff that is inside your inbox. You really should have a dedicated, centralized location for this. And
Yeah.
you see that at only 1% said that they were using a tool. So, I mean, come on, guys, we got to get you on a tool for this.
The solution is here.
Yeah, that's right. So this section is mostly talking about utilities um, as just like a general background. So uh, what are the utilities? Well, we're really talking about electric, natural gas, uh, particularly places in the Northeast or colder places across the country, water, and then sewer. Sometimes sewer can get included with water, and then the other one that sometimes gets added in here is trash. Uh, and sometimes these things get bundled, and sometimes they're separate. And again, coverage zones vary a bit depending on the area of the country for these utilities. And some of this relates to this this map here called regulated versus deregulated energy markets. So water tends to be regulated across the entire United States. It's usually municipal run and very closely monitored because it's such a essential thing. Whereas a lot of these these ones, like for instance, black here for Texas and then the Northeast, and then blue, you'll notice are deregulated gas places. Um, and then same thing with the yellow quadrant and up in kind of the Mid-Atlantic region for electric and gas. These are places where the states have decided that they wanted to have a bit more choice and competition. So instead of there being one provider, some of these places will offer up multiple providers that are all competing to get renters to use their service. So Texas, for example, being a deregulated electric company, there's over 40 different providers that all have different rates, different ways that they even depict it. Sometimes it's variable based depending on the time of day, different rates for the electricity. Sometimes they have simple contracts for how much it costs. Um, and uh, and even some of the things that might be specialized, like if someone had an electric car, there's some that would be more favorable to them than others. Um, but yeah, in short, um, a lot of the country is regulated. Some places it's deregulated. Deregulated, there's certain opportunities to even be able to monetize it, as some of these companies have marketing spend to be able to kick back to property managers for electing to use their service.
And are there like main electric service providers in those deregulated places?
Yeah, yeah. So utility profit works with all of them, and there's different providers within some of these different markets.
Nice.
And then internet, while it might not directly be a utility, tenants see it almost as a utility. It's probably more important than running water for most tenants. And what are the options for them when they go to set things up? So these are some of the main technologies. You have on the left, fiber and cable. Cable was the first kind of generation of it, but over the last decade or two, we've been laying fiber optic cable, and it's just a faster service. It's the new school thing. Not every home is covered with fiber. Generally, if the home is wired for fiber, the tenant's going to use that because it's the kind of the cheapest and fastest technology out there. 5G and satellite over here on the right. These are kind of the most modern offerings for this. They're still a little bit slower to make a huge impact and a bit more expensive at being new technology. A lot of these telecom companies pushing 5G. 5G will be for cities. It's kind of like the future of cell phone, but used for a internet capacity. And then there's been a lot of news about some satellite companies like SpaceX had launched something called Starlink, where people could get internet, particularly in really rural areas of the country where they don't have lines laid yet. So you can be able to tap into the broadcast of internet from space. And it definitely serves for a population in the middle of the country that have less options.
Yeah. Do you think eventually internet will have no cost, or that's not a possible thing?
It ends up being about $70 per month for someone on average today, is how much the plans are. I think that like any technology, the more adoption of it and the more competition that exists, it can drive the price down. Telecommunications has notoriously been a an oligopoly with not too many options. Some markets there's only one company. Those markets, the plans are generally a little bit more expensive than the ones that have a lot more competition. Why
Correct.
is it expensive in general for these telecom companies? Well, someone actually for the cable and fiber optic lines, someone had to actually go to the house and dig a trench where they had to dig out the hole, lay down this really expensive specialized line, and it can cost thousands of dollars to do a neighborhood. And there's even been some companies that were, trying to make this happen more cheaply. Like I remember when I moved into Austin a couple of years ago, there's a big push by Google to lay fiber optic line, but it's really difficult to do, especially if it hadn't been done when some of the neighborhoods had initially been set up. And you're running into driveways and getting permitting from the city for it. So long story short, I think because it's logistically hard to do this and also not a ton of competition, there's probably like 5 to 10 companies in the US that really matter for telecommunications. It's probably going to be around the price that we're seeing today, for the immediate future.
Okay. Interesting facts here.
And then to that point, there's different companies that are the biggest presence within certain states. This list out which ones are biggest by region. I remember, so I grew up in New Hampshire, and the only show in town pretty much was Comcast back there. You got to see it up there. And Comcast also has some of the other coasts. They have different brands for internet like Xfinity. Um, AT&T, big popular one for Texas. Um, and even though there's like a logo for each one of these, the tools that we have, we're displaying every single option that's wired up for the home. We're making it easy for renters to see all of the potential options and plans and pricing all in one place. We think it's really important for renters to know all of their options, and that's how they drive better solutions, get better pricing, and we're all about having that happen.
So on the tenant screen, they can see all of the different like prices, what it offers, etc., and they
Yeah,
can
they
choose that.
they can even see if there's like a promotion running where they could get a discount on something. They can see if there's going to be a contract and if there's going to be cancellation terms or anything like that. Like we we are definitely in the camp of how do you add more transparency and online self-service abilities to the process.
Nice. Okay. I want to use utility profit already.
We talked about this a bit before, so I'll skip that. Streamlining utility process. So in this section, we're going to talk about some policies that you might have and things you might want to think about when developing these. So I think first and foremost, just consistency is important. It's much like application processing and screening. You should just write down what you're doing, know what the steps are, what you're gonna check. If you have training materials for the team, you want to have that documented so everyone's on the same page about what to do. Uh, you also want to be organized and get ahead of things to know what the providers are that service each address ahead of time, so you're not scrambling on move-in day. You also want to think about all the areas where you might be talking about utilities. Think about your approval email or your move-in instructions. Um, we talked about it before, but confirmation IDs, confirmations all in one place. That's important. And then always have a process to check, um, you know, for that move-in day if it had happened. Utility profit helps to streamline all these things, but even if you're not using utility profit, I think important to be thinking about this from a logistical perspective as a property
Yeah.
manager.
So basically, the property manager needs to do all of this, but there's no streamlined process. So it's like kind of everywhere, and
Yeah,
it's
that's right. Yeah, and some have thought about this more than others. This might, this webinar might be the first time that some people have even thought about this activity set. Maybe it was like something that they were doing in the background, but they're thinking to themselves, well, maybe I'm only spending like 30 minutes on it or something per move. Do I really need to optimize this? I've got a lot of other things going on in my business. And that's a fair thought, but like, if you could just spend 5 minutes initially get something set up and then you just forget about it from then on after, and it just makes your life easier,
Mhm.
that's what it's all about as a property manager. It's about figuring out ways to automate things so that all of the time that you have for free time, you can be thinking about growing your business, working on figuring out how to, you know, not work inside your business, but like work on your business and ways to be able to just be a better business operator.
It's like a problem they didn't know they had, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Like I don't even think that, there's a lot of Google search or organic intent of property managers even searching for utility stuff because, it like it's one of those problems you have, and then if someone is like, "Hey, do you have this problem?" You're like, "Yeah, you know what? I actually do." Like, and then you want to solve for it, but you might not even, be thinking about it all the time, day to day.
And this doesn't only like reduces property management's time into those things that are quite tedious, it also enhances the tenant's experience, you know? Because like as you say, some are moving from state to state, and then it's easy for them to just see what they have in one single place and book everything at once.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, you've got different stakeholders. You've got you yourself and your team, but you also have the tenants, and then you even have the owners of the home, and you're trying to come up with a solution that impacts all of them positively. Um,
Definitely.
Here's a screen that shows what it looks like. It's a little bit zoomed in, but you'll notice that there's check marks if it's been done, and then a clock if it still is going to get done. And then you can click into that to then get the extended details and get confirmation IDs that it had happened, and also know what the date is that it's going to be going live. And you were talking about tenant experience, so let's talk about that a little bit more. Uh, so assume that tenants know nothing about utilities. Could be the first time. They also have to get a lot of nudges and reminders to do this. And they also want something that's going to be self-service and preferably mobile first. They are on their phones. They don't want to have a phone call. If anything, they just want to do it over text or like a web application. And to put ourselves into the shoes of the renters, a lot of different surveys that show that moving is even more stressful than planning a wedding. And I know, Gabriella, you're doing that right now, and you could probably attest that a lot of work.
I need to take house, so then I see. It even packing, it's kind of a hassle. And unpacking, like one luggage. Imagine moving. No, I
Yeah,
don't
you're
want
like, did I pack this? Where's my,
I
where's my
know.
cast iron? How am I gonna cook dinner? It's
I
a lot of
know.
work. Here's a screen of what it looks like for renters using utility profit. So it will say that this is something that they need to do before getting the keys. It highlights what the different utilities are that are important for this address. This is all configurable. So if you don't have natural gas for the address, the app is smart enough to not display that. Then when the renter clicks into one of these utilities, it says who all of the providers are and gives an easy way to set up the services online and then collect confirmation that it was done. Uh, and then we also have live chat support available. So if someone gets hung up on something or has a question about how something works, our team is able to handle all of the utility and internet related questions.
Nice.
Yeah.
Internet is more important to renters than water. I think
Yeah,
nowadays, yes, like we do everything on our computers, our phones, and we need the internet to survive.
that's
In
right.
fact, with internet, you get water running.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, internet is more important.
And here's some of the details that renters are thinking about when selecting internet. So first, like what is available at my house? What are the companies that are covering my address? And then once you know that, what are the prices? What's the price per speed really? That helps you determine value. Like you want to get the fastest for the cheapest cost. And then you also want to consider contract terms because some companies will allow you to cancel at will or have it be more month to month, whereas other ones you might get locked into a longer extended period of time. And then there's even some details around installation. So sometimes a tech will deliver the box by hand and have to like wire things up, whereas other times it's already wired. They might just drop ship the router that's required for the home. Sometimes all these things are free. Sometimes it's paid for. We surface all this information inside the checkout process.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of things you don't realize, but it's interesting. And like, do people usually use I mean, they like speed, but do they go for the cheapest or they find a balance or you have no data on those things?
I think that it just depends on the person and what they're going to do with the internet. Um,
Okay.
Someone who might just be casually browsing a little bit online, maybe they don't care as much about speed, whereas someone who might be working from home more often is going to be doing a lot more Zoom calls for work or be on Slack or other things like that. They're probably going to want to have a faster speed because they rely on it so much.
Yeah.
And then even kind of consideration for what they're going to be doing with it. Are they going to be watching a lot of YouTube videos and using Netflix and that type of thing? Well, they're probably going to want to have a speed that's going to be adequate for those types of services.
And for each of the utilities, including internet, if they already have one, can they change on the same tool?
Yeah, that's right. So maybe they're with a certain internet provider for their current address. That one is able to happen at the new address. We have the ability to even help to facilitate that plan transfer. So we can
Okay.
help them stay with the same company and just set up a new service offering for the new home.
Nice. Perfect. Very easy to use.
Here's some details on the homeowner side. Um, So a couple of things to consider about your property owners and investors. This could be a home where they don't know what utilities exist for it, or might even have the wrong information on hand because they had done it a while ago. Um, and so don't always think that the property owners are going to be able to relay the information about utilities. They might not even have that information. And then a mistake within utilities can be costly. There can be different access problems to the home if you are trying to do self showings, if it doesn't have electricity, different things related to pipes freezing or homes being too hot without AC. A lot of different things in there where you just don't want to have a costly bill from doing it wrong. And then really the less you can involve the property owners, the better. It's like a squeaky wheel type of thing. Like you want it to be out of sight, out of mind, and not even, just magically have it solved. And then as minimally as possible have bill backs. Like you don't want to be bugging them for the $50 for the electric because it didn't get switched over correctly, and issues you might have with that.
And you never know if these investor like or owners of homes, they are it's not like they only have one home, they have many other ones. So one will be just kind of annoying if you're talking to them about this water stuff or internet,
Yeah,
etc.
Yeah, and it's just another way to, shine as a property manager. Like the more you can just take care of business and all the things
Mm-hmm.
and delight them, then they're going to invite their friends to use your property management company. They're going to probably buy more investment properties. Um, Making sure that the owners are super happy is like probably the most important thing in property management.
True.
And then a part of this that we hit on a little bit, but um, I think it's a new concept around different different things that can help to improve gross margins as a property manager. A couple of years ago, on the scene became resident benefit packages and ways to kind of sell additional things. For instance, there were some companies that were doing like air filters or pest control or doing different things to do credit-based reporting um, to ultimately be able to offer something to the tenants and then be able to monetize that offering in a way to expand property management profits. And this is something that's on mine because property management notoriously kind of lower margin business that's difficult because it's so people intensive and manual. So really any way to be able to get an edge and to improve profits, especially if it's going straight to the bottom line, is pretty important. Um, Utility profit will help to give some money on each move that happens, each monetizable move. Property managers are seeing $30 to $70 in profits that get generated from the services that tenants set up. The amount of money that can ultimately get generated from this is going to vary depending on the size of the portfolio. Um, some math, this is actually kind of a helpful thing, just even do back of the napkin math on doing uh, home turnover uh, ratio is however number of doors you have under management, if you take that and you divide it by 30, will give you the average turnover rate for moves that are happening per month. So a 300 door property manager that they're going to average 10 moves per month. With 30% more moves happening in the summer than the winter, just because that's the busiest time of the year. But it's kind of a cool way to kind of, do some forecasting on how many moves are happening and why and how's that going to change if you grow. Um, and then that also obviously helps think through how much money would be able to get made from a service like utility profit.
Nice. And what are like the current challenges that utility profit faces, and how do you guys are kind of tackling those?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess maybe I'll talk about that in this technology section. Um, we are a tech company. Um, I'll talk about some of the things that are really important to us that we are solving for as we're scaling. So we're working with over 100,000 homes today, and that number is growing really, really quickly. Uh, and some of the things that we think are most important is accuracy of the utilities information, make sure that they're correct for every address, and then also that we're sending the right notifications at the right time, providing a super high level of support for tenants. One thing that's really been on my mind is making sure that it just magically works with as many property management softwares as possible. You know, whether they're using Appfolio or Rent Manager or Rentvine, or another thing that it just magically works with those different tools so that we have all the information we need to be successful, and then the system just works a lot better. So I wouldn't say any of these things are problems, really just things that we're working on from a tech perspective that
Okay.
we're just doing more and more of them as we're growing.
Nice. And you get feedback from your current partners, and then do you take into consideration their opinion, or how is your relationship with your property managers?
Yeah, so we assign everyone to a direct account manager who looks over everything, is there to be able to provide support. We're constantly talking to our customers just to learn how they want us to evolve the product offering and software. Uh, People really like it. We do something called a Net Promoter Score, which is good for anyone to do. Um, even within their own company for things. But Net Promoter Score is a basic question that says, how likely were you to be to recommend this to a friend or a peer? And it's a good way to gauge if the audience is a promoter, they think highly of it, saying that it's like a 10 out of 10 or really,
Mm.
9 out of 10. If someone's passive, not that interested, but not really kind of hurting it, or they're a detractor. They don't have a good experience and
Okay.
it's a low score. What we're saying is that it's really high net promoter score. We're consistently getting some of the best net promoters from our partners. And we even I guess I didn't touch on this before, but all of the software that we have is white labeled for the property managers, and it's their logo, their brand, which I think is really important. But
Mhm.
we've even asked some of the tenants after they've set things up what they think about it, what they think about the tool specifically. And
Okay.
we've had thousands of tenants rate this now, and it's I think we're like a 4.5 star, which is really good for for
Yeah.
anything tenant related. Particularly something that if you were to rate it before the tool, you'd probably be getting like a 1 or a 2 or not even data on it.
Yeah.
So those are some of the ways that we're looking at it. And then all of this software is completely free. Everything that I had ran through, there's no contracts, there's um, no cost to use it or set it up or anything. It doesn't cost anything, which is pretty insane.
Nice. So like it's a completely win-win for the property manager and also the tenant.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Win, win, win. That's the key.
Win-win-win. Utility profit wins, you guys, property managers win, and tenant win. So it's a nice business model.
Yeah, it's good for everybody. And then I know I covered a lot of information today. NARPM listeners who might be kind of curious about different things, either about our company or just policies in general. Always happy to talk shop with business owners or people on the leasing team, different agents and brokers. Love to just interact within the community. So this is my direct email address if anyone wants to talk through something or has questions. More than happy to chat.